Mm-hmm. Yay.
I'm ready.
So exciting. I'm ready.
All right.
I got all the color. Got all the merch.
Yeah, that means you get to go first in Angry Unicorns, I think.
That's true. All right. Let's admit.
Those with the most color. Yes. Hello. Oh,
So
Kathleen's here. Awesome.
Yes.
Hello.
And someone named M.
M. Hello,
M.
M.
Hello,
Mysterious
M.
M.
Hi.
Hi.
Hello.
Are you cold, Kathleen?
Yes.
You look chilly.
Yeah, my heater's
Oh, no. Oh, no.
not functioning properly.
Oh,
Oh,
gosh.
you've got your beautiful painting in the background. That's nice.
Yes, yes, I did that for my my other Zoom to impress all the
Oh,
board
lovely.
members.
Maureen,
Hi,
can you hear us
everybody.
okay?
Hi
Hi,
there.
Maureen.
Hello.
Welcome. I'm glad we have, I don't know, half a dozen people who signed up for the to be in the Zoom call. Yay, thank you, because then we have actual people to ask actual questions, which is always really nice.
Yes, indeed.
And then we're also doing this live to YouTube as a public thing. So there may be people who will be watching it. Helen's going to monitor and keep an eye out on the chat over there on the YouTube live, so that if someone asks a question there, we have a prayer of knowing about it and answering it here. And Jennifer has not one, not two, but 3 cameras on. You can see the back of one of her things from one of her cameras. Okay.
Hello.
There we go. I was like, hey, we want to see all the different sides of your beautiful face. So anyway, so welcome. We wanted to give you guys a little sort of insider peek of where the magic happens and show you, like, Kathleen, you've been in classes before. Maureen, I can't remember if you have to.
Yes,
yeah.
I've had your classes a few times.
Good. So, but for people who don't know, we wanted to show you all a little bit of what a Little Metal Foxes class looks like, what the online studio space looks like. And so Jennifer and I both teach classes from our own home studios or our own studios. And so we're going to show you a little bit of what that looks like. So I was going to start.
Well, and Helen's in her London studio as well.
Helen's in her London studio. We have an international set of foxes at this point.
Wow.
Jennifer's in Ballard. I'm in the Wedgwood area of Seattle, and those are both in Seattle. And Helen is in London, which is so exciting. Any other little thoughts or comments other foxes wanted to make before I dive into my box?
Yeah, I wanted to say welcome to everybody, and we're really excited you could be here, because we wanted to be able to do a free class and sort of show people, what we do and do a little introduction, as well as give you guys a little bit of guidance as far as like the tools, the basic tools that you might need. So yes. Julia's going to cover that. I'm going to cover a basic solder setup station, and then Helen is going to give us a quick little look into the inside of what happens when you do classes and how to find your rewards and videos and things like that.
Rewards,
so we've got a couple of different things going on. So we each wanted to give you just a chance to ask questions as well, and be able to, give us your feedback if you need to, or ask questions about upcoming classes, and give you guys a little taste of what we do. So, blah, blah, blah. Here you go. So, so feel free to ask questions and join in. We're going to start with Julia telling us a little bit about all the tools that you need that fit into a shoebox, basically. So yes. Take it away, Julia.
Thank you. And I just made Helen co-host. Helen, so if somebody else is popping in, we have a few other people who'd signed up for this part. So this is actually really fun for me, because for years, I have said the tagline for Shoebox Studio is that you can make professional quality jewelry with the tools that fit in a large shoebox, right? It's great to have big power tools and stuff like that, but you can do it with a lot less. So last night I actually took a shoebox and I put a bunch of stuff in it, right? So here's my shoebox. That it's an actual shoebox that actually had shoes in it at one point. And I filled it up with tools. And this, I mean, you can always get more. Jewelry is one of those things where, there are always new cool tools that you can get. But this is kind of all you need to get started. And this is actually even more than you really need to get started. So let me share my screen and show you, to pull my document camera over here, show you my shoebox. Okay, so here's my shoebox. And I'm going to actually stand up so I can do this a little better. And so you open it up, and this is a Solderite board. This one actually I've been using for fusing, so it doesn't have a lot of flux on it. You can buy them that are half this size. You can buy one that's only 6 inches. So this is for doing soldering. You'd solder on that. And then this is my torch. This is a propane torch that you can screw the bottle on here. And it has its own striker built in, which is really nice. So that's a soldering thing. Then we have some sanding and filing stuff. So these are some little miniature sanding sticks that I made with popsicle sticks. And these are larger sanding sticks. And you notice they're in a bag because I want to keep them so they're not shedding their stuff all over the inside of my box. So these are 320 grit. This is a 1/4 round, which gives you a nice rounded surface. These are just, you know, pieces of molding from the hardware store. And then this is one called bullnose molding, which has one rounded corner, and then the other 3 corners are sharp or square. So those are some sanding sticks. I also have some little files in here. So this is a set of needle files. And then I have a couple of hand files. And you can see I've wrapped them in some leather to keep them from rubbing against each other. So this is a flat file that has a safe edge on one side, and then this is a half round file. There are lots of different sizes and shapes of files, but you really only need a couple to get started with. But you don't want them to rub against each other. So especially if you're stuffing stuff into a shoebox, there should be some way to keep them packaged so that they don't rub on each other. Okay, what else? This is a loop, super useful. So you can look closely at things. So you can get in here and look really closely at something, which is really nice. And I actually use this quite a bit, this exact one. I use this quite a bit when I'm demonstrating stuff to show somebody something up close, like that. So that's my little loop. And shop towel, you should always have a rag. Then we have an assortment of hammers in here. Dig out the hammers. I hope you're already surprised at the number of things that are in this box, because it's a lot. So I think that's all the hammers. So I have 4 hammers in here. This is a chasing hammer, which I also love to use as a riveting hammer. I use the polished back end as a riveting hammer. This is a little ball peen hammer. So it's great for just whacking the crap out of things. Both of these you use to hit steel. So they would be used to hit stamps or the center punch. This is a plastic mallet. You could also use a small rawhide mallet. This is a little riveting hammer, which is great for doing texture. And you would never hit steel with this. You would only ever hit your silver or your copper or something like that. Okay, so there's all of those. I have a nice big ring mandrel in here, which of course won't fit this way. If I had in the perfect world, I'd have a shoebox that was like 1/2 inch bigger because I don't really want it to be in here like that. Or I would buy a ring mandrel that was a little shorter. But this is super useful for making and sizing rings. Actually, show you here. It has on it, it's a little hard to see. It has on it, it's indexed. Where are my lines? Get here so you can see it. You see the numbers on there? Whoops, let me get on here. There we go. So see how it says there's a 10 right there? So that's size 10 and it has marks on it. It has very light marks on it, which is good because then the marks are not, it's like laser etched. So the marks aren't super deep, so they won't make marks on your material, on your metal. There you can see the numbers a little better. Okay. I have a drill, super useful. They're both for drilling holes and also for twisting wire, which is why it has a cup hook on it. And then I have a bunch of pliers. So vice grips, super helpful. It's always good to have kind of a heavy set of pliers in here and something that you can use to grab on to really tough stuff like tool steel. Then I have my side cutters and I have 4 pairs of pliers. So your basic plier shapes are going to be chain nose. So this is round on the outside, flat on the inside, comes to a point. Flat nose, flat on the outside and inside with a rectangular shape at the tip. And then round nose, they're like two little chopsticks that are tapered. And then in addition to that, I have a pair of, these are flat, half round. So one side is half round and the other side is flat. These are great for bending rings and things. And this is a little piece of just medical tubing, rubber tubing that I slip on here. And then that helps me not make marks on my metal as I'm working on stuff. Sometimes I take it off, sometimes I leave it on. A couple of ring clamps. Jennifer was over here last night and we were putting this box together. This is my favorite ring clamp. She really likes this one. The advantage of this one is that you can grab something in this end on the outside of it, or on this end, you grab around the outside of a ring, so around the inside of a ring. So it holds it tightly from the inside so you can work around the outside edge. With this ring clamp, I took a round file and made a notch in it because then when I'm working on my bench pin, it fits right nicely onto the bench pin and it won't slide up and down. So, and you can do that to both ends. This one works like this. It just opens up and has a wedge. This is the classic bench pin that has probably been used for hundreds of years. Or not bench pin, sorry, classic ring clamp. A few other things. Joyce Chen shears. I love these. These are fabulous. These are kitchen shears. You can get them on Amazon. They have a lifetime warranty. Nice, big, comfortable handles, short, really strong blades. Whenever you're cutting metal, go deep into the notch, go deep into the throat. The deeper into the throat you are, the more control you have over the cut. But I've cut 20 gauge metal with these, and they're great because they're inexpensive and they're a wonderful thing to have on your bench. Let's see what else is in here. Chopsticks. Chopsticks are great because you can use them as tongs in your pickle, or you can use them as little mandrels. So it's always nice to have a pair of chopsticks in there. One of the most important tools in your toolbox is your saw. So this is like your pencil for a jeweler. You really, really have to have a jeweler's saw. I don't know a jeweler. I know jewelers who don't like sawing. I don't know a jeweler who doesn't own a saw, right? So even if you don't like doing really delicate and intricate piercing, you really do have to have a saw. And in the bottom here are some saw blades. I like these little tubes that I get from Lee Valley that are watchmakers tubes. And so these are the 2/0 saw blades in here. There's probably several dozen in there. Okay, some other stuff. Well, let's see. This is all a collection of smaller things. Let's see what we've got here. Sharpie marker. Absolutely critical to have a Sharpie marker close at hand at all times. I probably have 20 of the things in my studio. This is a pin vise, and it has in it 2 different sizes of needles. So one end has a sharp needle, and the other end has a blunter needle, has one that like a tapestry needle. And I use these as scribes more than anything. And then I have a little bit of cork on them just to keep myself from getting poked. Metal ruler.
Did you say it's scribes?
I use them as scribes. Yeah.
Okay. I just didn't quite hear that the first time, so I just wanted to make sure. Okay.
And you can buy a separate scribe.
Yeah, but no, that's
it's nice to have. It's nice to have a tool that does double duty. You can use a pin vise and a drill bit and just drill a hole with your hand. Just put the drill bit into the pin vise and just doop, doop, doop. You would take the needle out of this end because you wouldn't want a needle poking into your hand. So you take the needle out of both ends, and then you could put, one of your drill bits. I have lots of little drill bits. I have these are little, they're the little containers from leads, from mechanical pencil leads, and they work great to store drill bits. You can see I've marked this number 59 for 18 gauge. This is if I was drilling a hole to make a rivet, for example. And then this is number 53 for 1/16 inch tubing and 14 gauge. So I try to give myself a little extra data whenever I'm working. Altoids tins also, we all know and love Altoids tins, right? Because, or any little box, any little metal box is They're delicious. Okay, let's see what else. We've got a couple of soldering things in here. These are all soldering elements. So Flux brush, and then this is my actual pick, soldering pick. This is a titanium pick, and you can see it's crusted up with flux and it's a little bent, so it's getting a little old. These are the tweezers I use to pick up hot metal to throw them into the quench bowl. And then these are some cross-lock tweezers. And we all love the cross-lock tweezers that have the fiber grips, because the fiber grips keep it, even though the metal itself gets hot, you can still grab it on the grips and you won't get burnt. So this is for holding on to stuff while you're soldering. So all of these are soldering related tools. Last but not least, okay, so measuring devices of various kinds. Metal ruler is always really helpful to have. You should always have one that has both centimeters and inches if you happen to be like me, having to live in the States where people still use inches. This is a divider, and this is wonderful for marking out and laying out lines and getting nice straight parallel lines. Here's the center punch that would go with my drill bits so that I could make a little divot to make a hole in a piece of metal. This is one of my all-time favorite tools. This is like a jeweler saw. You know, no jewelry studio should be without this. This costs, I don't know, $6 to $8. They're brass, and it's a little sliding gauge. And the nice thing about it is it comes apart. So it allows you to measure the thickness of things. This vernier scale on here, the vernier scale is this. And this vernier scale, you can see, has little lines on the bottom. This actually allows you to measure to tenths of a millimeter, which is pretty small. So you don't need to buy a really expensive digital caliper. You can use this to measure stones up to tenths of a millimeter. It also works really well. Jennifer showed me this little trick to as a square, because this is a perfect square. So if you need to make a line on something that is perfectly perpendicular to your top edge, there you go, right? Using this. And yeah, so it's wonderful for lots of different things. Okay, what else have we got in here? This cap back on the Sharpie marker, always, always, always. This is a little polishing cloth. I just keep it in here so it doesn't rub up against things. So it's nice to have that for polishing things. And then this is a charcoal block. So the Solderite board that's over here is great for soldering on. It's also really nice to have a charcoal block. I have it in a plastic bag because you can see it's already kind of shedding onto my fingers. This side has been used some, so it's been burnt away. This side is fresh. This is what they look like when they first come. You should always put some binding wire around them so that, because they will crack. This is a natural product. It's actually charcoal, actually wood. So if you put the binding wire around it, it will make it last longer. But this allows you to work with silver or gold in a more reducing environment, because the carbon like sucks oxygen out of the whole soldering space. Jennifer is going to talk more, I think, about some of that stuff. This is also super important. Over here, I have some supplies. You should always have some water on your bench if you're going to use charcoal, because you always want to be able to quench the charcoal, because when you've heated something on here, it's like those briquettes. It starts burning. And if you leave it and don't spray it with water or quench it, you'll come back in the morning and you'll have a really expensive pile of ash. And we don't want you to burn up your expensive charcoal block. So there's that. And then this one, love this. This is another hack I love. This is a Sapphire nail file. So Sapphire is a Mohs 9. So it's going to be harder than pretty much anything that you're working on, any metal that you're working on, but it's super thin. And so this is kind of in the same category as your needle files, because it allows you to file and sand things that are, little tiny things. It lets you go back and forth, since it's like a sandpaper, which is nice. All right, now we're down to the really heavy things at the bottom. This is a little clamp-on bench vise. I love this. I got this ages ago, and it's just a really great size. This is, see, where's my ruler? Tell you how wide it is. So this one is 3 inches wide, right? And these jaws are really you know, it's a really nice, they're smooth on the inside. And I use this all the time for doing twisting wire, that kind of stuff, holding things when I'm working on them. But it's always really, it's kind of heavy, so it adds a lot of weight to your box, but it is, I feel, worth it to have it. Set that one over here. And then next to last, but also super important, you cannot make jewelry without this, is a bench pin. And I particularly love this particular one because this anvil bench pin combo is relatively inexpensive. I think they're like 20 bucks. You get both the basically a bench block that allows you to hammer stuff on here, so you don't have to get an additional bench block. If this were my only bench block, I would spend some time to finish this and get a really nice, super smooth surface on here so that it would be a polished surface when I'm hammering. And then I love the fact that the tang on this part here, the wooden part, comes all the way under here so that when you put this on the table, this is really tight. So this is really sturdy, really steady. It doesn't slide around. Your bench pin is going to stick out from the table like this and allow you to work on it this way. So you want it to, if it's loose, it's a crazy make. So it's super important that it's sturdy. I also really like this one because it's small. This is quite a small one, so I can wrap my hand around it. So I can reach around it and grab onto something this way and hold it as I'm sawing, for example, or filing, which is nice. Now, bench pins always come, this one has been worked. So this bench pin I've adjusted to work for me. They always come just rectangular. They don't have this V-shaped cut because every jeweler personalizes his or her bench pin, their bench pin, to fit the work that they do. So I do a lot of piercing, so I cut out a V shape there. You can see I've been doing some filing and sawing on here. This little slit is another little slit that's super important for starting saw cuts. I also have this that allows me to hold a piece of wire or something perpendicular to the edge and cut off this one. So it's just another little, you can personalize your bench pin in ways that make it really useful. This side, the flat side, is for sawing. So when you're sawing on a piece of metal, my saw is underneath here somewhere. Where'd it go? Here we go. So when you're sawing on a piece of metal, like this, you want the flat side up. If you are filing on a piece of metal, you want the angled side up. And so that's part of why this is designed so that it's really easy to just loosen this up and flip it over. Yeah. Okay. Last but not least, dollar store magnifiers. These were $1. And even if you wear prescription glasses, you can usually balance these on your nose in front of your prescription glasses and get some magnification, right? If you can't see what you're doing, you can't do the work. So spend the dollar at the dollar store and get yourself, these are 2X reader, try a few on, find the ones that work for you. So that is it, guys. There's my empty box. Here's my big pile of stuff over here on the side. I also have this box because this is supplies. So these are things that are like wet or consumables. So obviously, if you have a torch, you're going to need to have some propane. That's what my torch is. My torch just screws right onto the bottle. You need to have, if you're doing any soldering, you need to have some pickle. It is super important that your pickle be stored in something like glass that has a plastic lid. You do not ever want to store your pickle in a jar or a container with metal because it will corrode the metal lid. This is a perfect low cost, low tech pickle pot, and used in conjunction with a mug warmer. Now you have warm pickle, right? So you mix your pickle into the jar and take the lid off, of course, use your pickle, warm it up on the mug warmer. And then when you're done, just put the lid back on and put it away. So if you're one of those people who has to like get your work out and then put it away, this is a great way to be able to put it away safely so that pets and children and other people don't, people who shouldn't be getting into your pickle are not getting into your pickle. This is Flux. I like the Autoflux paste Flux. So this is Flux. This is what I use for patina, which is lime sulfur, calcium polysulfide. It's actually a fungicide and insecticide from the organic. It's considered an organic pesticide and fungicide. And then in this box, last but not least, I love this stuff. Working hands cream. My hands, because I wash my hands a lot in the studio, get really dried out. And so this stuff is awesome. You don't even need very much. Just put a little bit on right now. Just put it back on the back of your hand and rub it in. And it feels so good. I love this because it's not super greasy. I don't want to have my hands be all slippery. So that is it for me now that I've got my working hands cream on. Oh, and I get this at like the hardware store. Like you can get this at Home Depot or Ace Hardware. I mean, you can get it other places too, but that's where I found it and started using it. So that is me. Let me turn off the share screen so you can go back to seeing my amazing face. And I'll push this aside. There we go. Take my box out of the way. All right. Now, of course, but there are always more tools, right? And there are more specialty tools. So depending on what you're doing, you would need other things than what I have in the box, right? If you decide you're going to do kombu, you're going to need some burnishers, you're going to need a hot plate. You know, if you're doing enameling, you're going to need a kiln. You know, if you're forging, you're going to need an anvil and a lot of hammers. The people who do forging and raising, those people have the most amazing collections of hammers and stumps and space, and a lot of space as well. So anyway,
yeah,
that's good.
Thank you. That's good. I mean, you know, I think one of the things that's really awesome about jewelry is collecting all the tools because
I know
it's fun. But it's important to remember too that you can do things with the most basic things around you, and it doesn't have to be expensive. You don't have to have, you know, the perfect pliers to do the job. There is no silver bullet when it comes to like polishing, and everybody polishes differently. So there are going to be tools that you're going to add, you know, and equipment that you may add to your arsenal, you know, that include things like a flexible shaft drill, or, you know, which is for me an essential piece of equipment in the studio. But if you're just starting out and want just, you know, the basic items to be able to start making things and to work simply, it doesn't have to take up a lot of room. It doesn't have to be a big, you know, event. It can be, you know, done simply and easily at the kitchen table. It can be done, and affordably. Yeah, absolutely. And it's been done that way for 10,000 years. And I think we get this idea that everything, you know, has to come to us overnight from a catalog or, you know, an online store, when a lot of times it's just stuff you may have, you know, from the hardware store or in your garage or in your kitchen or, you know, whatever you've got to make jewelry with and make wearable stuff. You know, it's been done that way for thousands of years. So
I think it's also really, keep it simple. I think it's also really important to say that even if you buy new tools aren't necessarily always perfect right out of the package, right?
Right.
So like my pliers, the pliers I use, I always end up dressing the pliers. And by dressing the pliers, what I'm talking about is taking my pliers, taking one of these little sanding sticks and smoothing the edge here, because when they're drop forged, they have a sharp edge, and most of the pliers I use, I'm going to use at some point for chain making, and I don't want them to mark my metal. So, and if you want to have a really smooth mark from something, you know, finishing the inside is really important. You can also take a pair of pliers and completely alter it. You can cut bits out of it and do things. Jennifer has a whole thing that she talks about with that. So, and vintage tools are great.
And the thing, vintage tools are fantastic. So, I mean, some of my favorite tools I've found from, estate sales or, you know, sales that are going on from like old schools that are closing or, you know, something like that. But yeah, you kind of find the tools you like and work with those and sort of build your collection. And, you know, I mean, there's some tools over the years that I got early and I have passed on to younger, newer makers that are, you know, just starting out. But, you know, it's surprising now how accessible a lot of the jewelry making craft tools are. You can go to Michael's or Joann Fabrics and pick up, some just, great essential basic tools.
Basic
So,
pliers, basic saw frame.
Right, right. So yeah, there's all kinds of ways that you can sort of work on a budget, work in a small space, and make things really easy. So yes, with that in mind, if you're going to be adding like a soldering process to your jewelry skills and need an area to do that, it is important to sort of consider where you're going to do that, how you're going to do it, what kind of torch you're going to use. And we do have a couple of classes coming up that are great for basic tools as well. Julia's got the files demystified class coming up. And
I think sawing and piercing demystified is coming up too.
Sawing and piercing. And then I'm going to do torches again soon. So it's, lots of different things that you can sort of add and build and layer on to what you're doing. With soldering, which is generally considered a pretty basic jewelry skill, once you start hammering and twisting and riveting, and then you want to sort of like get things stuck together a little bit more. Soldering is one of those things that can be done really simply and with very basic tools from the hardware store, or, nicer torches from jewelry supply places. But like Julia has her propane torch that screws onto a propane bottle. Those work great.
They're good entry level. I mean, because they're like $35 and they usually come with a tank of propane. They're not, if you're doing this a lot, you probably aren't going to want to hold the tank of propane, right? But it's a good place to start.
Yeah, absolutely.
And then move on to one of the ones Jennifer talked about.
Yeah, and I think it's important to realize that, a lot of the torches that we've got today are kind of fancy and nice and work for different things. But what we have available, like the propane torch, is also things like the butane torches. And you can get creme brulee torches that work great. There are like pencil thin torches that you can get that are rechargeable, like a lighter, and those work really well. So if you want to do something that's a little bit smaller, or if you find the propane tanks are a little intimidating, you can always go to butane, which is a much smaller container, and it works really well to be able to, compress that size, and it makes it very easy to put away. And again, those are great on a budget, and you can get those from your hardware store, or you can get them from Amazon and buy the butane refills at 7-Elevens and hardware stores and Home Depot and places like that. So just lighter refills are a really easy way to get started with your soldering. But I wanted to show you my solder setup and what that looks like. So come with me. I'll show you to my solder station, which is over here. And let me flip you around here. There we go. Boop. And turn you upside down. There we go. So this is my basic solder setup. And on my solder setup, I've got a couple of things that are available here. So I've got my a little Solderite pad. I usually have the thing that I've got sort of in the background here that you can see is a ceramic background. And this is called a Silquar, Silquar, Silquar. And they're ceramic with a little foot on them. So they have like a little lift. But I've also got a fireproof surface below that. And because this ceramic has feet on it, it's not touching the surface below. So there's a little bit of space between that. So I kind of like having a little bit of protection there when I'm soldering. And this is reflective, heat reflective. So the heat doesn't penetrate through this very easily as well. The other thing that I have are a couple of lightweight kiln bricks that I kind of put in the back. So as I'm soldering, if my flame is bouncing off my surface and going forward, I have something behind my solder station that makes it a little more safe and flame proof in the backside.
You would never have your torch back there if you had a torch.
Yeah.
Right. The little red torch wouldn't be there.
Oh, this is that's a fire extinguisher. So you always want to have a fire. Yeah, you always want to have a fire extinguisher nearby. So my little fire extinguisher, actually, yeah, it's kind of fun because I use this to quench my charcoal block, but it's just a little little teeny tiny squirt gun, but it's my tiny fire extinguisher. But I do have other fire extinguishers, like a regular standard fire extinguisher,
That's good. I'm glad.
close by as well. But yes, fire extinguisher. The other things that I have here on my my solder station, and I've got a couple of different Solderite pads for different purposes. So this one I have has a little trivet. This little trivet actually has the silkworm with the little spinny feet, which makes it nice if I'm soldering and I need to sort of twist things around. But just a simple 6x6 Solderite pad and or something like a charcoal block can be really much all you need, And I have on this side, I've actually just got some terracotta tile. And you can just go to, Home Depot or the hardware store and use terracotta tile and put a couple of feet on it in the same way that you could use the silkworm underneath this. So it kind of makes it nice and fireproof, heat-proof. So solder surfaces, little soldering bricks and little soldering implements are really handy. There are lots of other soldering surfaces that are helpful. Things like the honeycomb, this is a ceramic. This is really great if you're interested in working with things like argentium. And you kind of see it has holes in it, right? You can kind of see through it, right? And those little holes are great because you can use little T-pins and little pieces of wire to actually pin into those holes. So when you're trying to set things up in a way where you've got things that you need to brace, something like a little ceramic honeycomb can be great for that, but it's good for argentium especially. There are also little solder bricks that are this is like a little magnesia block. And these can be really good and soft, so you can pin things into them. So again, if you're trying to set something up where you need to brace things, a little soft magnesia block can be really helpful too. I usually opt for charcoal over magnesia block. This one to me is a little dusty and fluffy, so it's not one of my favorite ones. I really prefer the softer charcoal blocks for that. And like Julia said, I always have a bottle of water nearby for my charcoal blocks. When I'm done, this one doesn't hold a lot of water, but but I do have a couple of spray bottles with water in them that I can just spritz my my charcoal block down when I'm done soldering and keep it quenched. I do have a variety of fluxes that I work with, and so I usually have those sort of nearby. The auto flux is a great one for working with a paste flux, but I also have some liquid flux here. These are Prips flux, and Prips flux I usually make from scratch using borax, boric acid, and TSP, and just some distilled water, and it gives me a nice liquid spray flux. Another option would be something like Stop Ox 2, and I use this when I'm working with gold fill. So having a little variety of fluxes is helpful. I also have a flux that I use for gold fill that is denatured alcohol and boric acid. And this is used specifically for that. The other thing I have at my solder station is my solder. And solder usually comes in easy, medium, and hard. And I usually separate them out in my little container like this. On the sheet solder, you can mark it, certainly with a Sharpie. One tip that I like that Julia uses is mark these with a red for the, which hard. For the hard?
I use Sharpie marker, red for hard, blue for easy. So red's the hottest, blue is the coolest, and then black is medium.
And that way when you're clipping little chips of this, because usually you're fringing the end of your solder like so, when you fringe it and cut it, you end up with these little bits of solder on your station. And if it's got red, you know that it's hard solder, or blue, you know that it's easy, and so on. The other thing that I will do with my solder to extend it and use less solder on my pieces is I'll run mine through my rolling mill, which makes it a little thinner.
Such a good idea.
And I can clip it and fringe it, and it looks like I'm using the same amount, but I'm actually using about half the amount of solder on my piece, which really helps me with cleanup and making that a little bit easier. The other thing I'll do is use my letter stamps. and stamp E's into my easy, M's into the medium, and H's into the hard. And that way, if my sheet of solder gets out and about, I know which one's which. For my wire solder, I'll bend one end of the wire like so. So my easy is bent once like this. The medium will have 2 bends in the end of the wire like that. So it has like a little square end. And then the hard ends up with 3 bends, which means that it is a little harder to bend. That means it's harder to solder. So like this one has like the little square bent on the end all the way around. So that gives me a way to sort of keep my solder handy and separated and know which one is which. The other thing that I usually have is my paste solder, which is really handy. And I use this quite a lot, especially when I'm doing my production soldering and solder that needs to get into little particular places. A little bit of paste solder can be really helpful. The other thing that I've got sitting right here, and this is a little more old school. A lot of our European cousins recognize this, and they probably use this more commonly than the paste flux, is a borax cone and dish. So with the borax cone and dish, and I have found that I really like this quite a lot, you usually, this one is sort of dried a little bit. So all I need to do is add a little bit of water to this and continue to grind. And this is just a borax cone. And I'll just grind this back down, and it gives me some fresh flux that I can use. This will last a really long time. And all I need to do is just continue to add a little water. It's great to let it dry out. And then the next day when I come back in to solder again, I just add some water and give it a little grind and start with some fresh flux again. So this dish is just a kind of a stoneware ceramic that's on the bottom.
It's unglazed ceramic, right?
It's unglazed, yep.
Right.
And it takes a little bit of work to get it seasoned properly. Because this absorbs a lot of water while you're doing that, and so does your cone when you're starting. But once you get it kind of juiced up and nice, you end up with a nice little crust of flux in the bottom that all you have to do after that is basically add a little water and give it a stir. So this is fantastic little flux, and the borax lasts a long time. And I will cheat a little bit from time to time and add a little bit of the paste flux to this just to get it juiced up a little quicker.
It's an interesting idea.
Yeah. The other thing I've got here is this is a fiberglass flux brush, and these usually come in a set of 3. And I like this because it's kind of a plastic wrapped flux brush, which means that it doesn't have a metal ferrule on it. And I like the brushes that don't have the metal ferrule because flux is corrosive on steel, and you don't want to get steel into your flux and then onto your pieces, because then you end up with steel in your pickle sometimes, and that can sometimes inadvertently transfer in the pickle to plating onto your piece. So this just keeps the my flux metal free. And the other thing you can use is a natural bristle brush with like a wooden handle or plastic, and that way you keep your metal out of your flux. And moving on to the solder station, I've always got a quench bowl of water nearby. So that way when I'm done soldering, I can quench right in my bowl. I do have quite the assortment of tweezers as well for soldering. I've got lots of little tweezers, large and small cross-lock tweezers like Julia was showing you. Some have little, like a bent nose, which is kind of handy, but I kind of have fallen in love with these smaller ones because I don't need a long tip on most of the things that I'm doing. So I like the little small ones like this. I also like a good pair of tweezers, and these are just a standard #1 stainless steel. I like the double A's, I like the M's, and they come with, different kinds of little sharp points, blunt points. And if you're using them for solder, sometimes they have a tendency to get a little burnt up. And what I'll do if they start getting weak or weird on the end, twisted up, is I'll actually just clip those off with a heavy wire cutter and file and sand them down. And then I've got a little bit blunter tip or a new tip on my tweezers. So kind of refreshing my tweezers. For solder picks, I've got a little assortment of these as well. Sometimes these will come in a set of the red, the blue, and the gold. And these are really good if you're separating out, using them for different solders. I usually use my gold solder pick for my gold and gold fill work, and my blue one for my silver. So I make sure that I'm not contaminating my gold with other metals and using just my gold one for gold fill. These have titanium points, which is kind of nice. It allows me to solder really cleanly. But if you want to add a cheap, easy little solder pick to your shoebox, this is one of my favorite ones that I use, and it's just a piece of coat hanger wire. And coat hanger wire is one of my favorite solder picks because it's really easy to pick up solder and stick it where you need it. And I've just sort of bent the end, heated it and bent it, and then hammered it out to give me a little flare on the end. So little solder picks.
Personalized solder pick.
Exactly right. Exactly right. Now I do have a couple of different torches that I use. The one that I've got right here is my Smith Little torch, and this is a oxypropane torch. And I've got not just my Smith Little torch tips that I can use with mine, but I've also added the page tips, and the page tips give me a little more versatility with my Smith torch. But the nice thing about the Smith Little torch is that this is really super portable as well, because this can wind up and you can use this with disposable tanks. So if you are using like a propane and oxygen tank, and you can get those from the hardware store, this is actually attached to, can be attached to a propane tank like this, and an oxygen tank like this one, that are, easy to get, not too terribly expensive. So I can actually run this torch on a couple of canisters of gas like that. And when you're not using it, it's easy to roll up and put away because it does not take up a lot of room. So if you want something that's a little bit, has a little bit more finesse than a standard propane torch, this can be a really good option, right?
Well, it's so lightweight, right? Like instead of holding the whole can of propane, you're just holding that little tiny thing in your hand. And it's really nice.
And the Smith Little torch by itself, it comes with lots of small tips like this. It does come with, you can get a bigger rosebud tip like this, which is good for bigger work, but you do need to have a larger oxygen tank when you're working with the bigger tips. So with this one, I actually do have a setup that has an oxygen tank with regulators, but I do run my propane on the, still with the smaller portable tanks, right? So this is my setup for my Smith Little torch. But the other torch that I use a lot is this one, which is a uni-weld handle, and this is an acetylene torch. And I like this one a lot. And this is just kind of how I grew up doing soldering, was with an acetylene plumber's torch. So this can be pretty versatile as well. But, any torch that you're working with is going to be fine. You don't always have to have, the perfect torch either. So the other thing I've got over here is my water, and my pickle is sort of right over, get a shot of pickle, is over here on my right. So my pickle pot is there we go. Pickle pot is just a nice little crock pot. And you can get little mini versions of that. I've got lots of little, there we go. I've got my little ones here that I usually use if I'm traveling out and about, that are just small little dippers. And you can get little pickle pots like this from, Goodwill for a couple of bucks usually. Or even a little, the candle warmers or something that's ceramic on the inside or glass on the inside works great, and just set it on low or warm to heat your pickle. So this can be a nice little plug-in pickle pot. So yeah, the other thing that I definitely have on hand is my fire extinguisher at my solder station, because that makes it, something that just in case, and spray water bottles all over the place. So I have, bigger ones and smaller ones, and, a big bottle of spray water that's right here. I also have over here, let me undo you from my clamp here, are a number of little brushes. And I usually use a lot of little brushes for my cleanup. I've got copper tongs for my pickle. because you don't want to reach into the pickle with steel. So I have those. And I also have some brass ones that I like a lot for my pickle. And I also have actual pickle dippers. And these are from Cornichons. And I can actually use that to put small parts into my pickle and take it out. So that makes it kind of handy for that. But nice little brushes for cleanup. I've got little brass brushes and softer toothbrushes, depending on what I'm working with, that allow me to sort of scrub my metal and keep it clean. But there to there, that's my whole solder station setup. And the other thing that I would tell you is make sure you've got access to fresh air and something that's going to remove the fumes from your station. And I've basically got a setup where I've just got a bathroom fan. I've got a piece of mesh over the front of that, so it doesn't, it did have a plastic one because this was a bathroom fan, but I didn't want to have plastic, on right in front of my torch. So I put on a piece of metal screen and just a piece of dryer duct that takes it out the window. So this removes the air that's coming in or coming, from my dirty air coming away from my soldering, gets it out of my face, and I have it at level where I'm soldering. So it's drawing the air straight away. I don't want to have that above my face because I don't want it drawing the fumes past my face. I want it drawing away from my face. So this gives me a nice clean area to work, a good ventilation. I've got lots of fresh air coming in, and that gives me a nice little way to get my soldering done, and it's all set. So yeah, there's my entire solder station right there. There we go. So, ta-da. Yeah, if you guys have any questions, I'm happy to answer them about that. Anybody have questions about solder stations?
Any questions from the YouTube live side? Helen,
yeah, I see
Kathleen.
No, we do have Paula from Hawaii is on, and
hi, Paula.
Hello, Paula.
Yeah, but we do have a few other viewers who are looking. So
Great. Hi, welcome, YouTube world. So yes, if you've got any types of questions or let us know. You can email us at info@littlemetalfoxes.com, of course, and we do a lot of demystified classes as well. So it's just sort of like breaking down the process, showing you the sort of ins and outs and tips of different tools and processes. So those can be really helpful for jewelers of all stages.
Types. Yeah.
Because a lot of times if you've been in a situation where you've learned how to do jewelry in one specific way at a specific school with one particular person, you may find that they've got a great way of doing it. This is the way that you've learned it, and that's great. But I got to tell you, it's like learning jewelry from different people, learning soldering from different people. I have watched so many people solder that I've learned so much from each and every single person. And not all of them are people that are better than me, that are like my professors, but I've learned a lot from people who just work differently than I do because they have specialized their soldering techniques to suit the particular thing they're doing. And they may find that using a certain type of solder or applying solder in a certain way or using a particular flux or using an anti-flux in a way that somebody else doesn't do it works great for them. But it may not work in every situation. But it's good to open yourself up and learn those techniques from as many people as you can. And I would just highly recommend, if you have that opportunity at any point, just watch and see what they're doing. Ask them questions and see if they're willing to share that information, why that works for them. And you may be able to add it to your arsenal of tricks and tips, for things that you may have problems with down the road, right?
Yeah.
So Kathleen had a question.
Sorry, go ahead.
Kathleen wants to know, the new Smith little torches, are they different from the older ones, probably 10 to 15 years old?
They should be pretty much the same.
Different from.
Yeah, they're pretty much the same. And what you're usually working with. There may be a little bit different handles, or the way that the hoses connect to the ends may have changed or been modified a little bit. I know that the replacement hoses have changed a little bit over the years and how they connect. It's been much simpler, so you don't have to take it in to have it done. You can do it at home now, which makes it much easier.
You're talking about replacing the hoses, right?
Yeah, replacing the hoses.
And the
that's
hoses are consumables.
They are, and there's
Yeah.
something that do need to be replaced every, few years. If you're using it often, you may find that you replace it just once a year. Like you have a day in June that you just do maintenance on the studio and just order your new hoses and just replace them. What can happen with the Smith Little Torch hoses especially is that the over time, just because you're, the wear and tear on twisting them, you might have a crack in a hose, and you might have a little leak or something. I found I just replaced one of the hoses. I had a little break in it and I shortened it. And then the next thing I knew, my oxygen hose had a leak. I'm like, oh God, I just need to replace them both. And when I did, I realized they have a new replacement hose connection, and it made it so much easier to do than it was before. So,
Well,
yeah.
one thing I've noticed, mine's really old, and I
Mhm.
bought the holder for it, and it won't come apart to put the component in. So I can't use the holder.
Oh,
So-
yeah. The holder on these guys, what she's talking about is the metal part here that allows you, it's steel, so it allows you to attach it to the plate, attaches to the magnet. Is that what you mean?
Yes.
That little part? Yeah. So to do that, most of these, if the crimps on your hoses are sticking out, it makes it almost impossible to unscrew the handle. And the handle should unscrew just at the top.
Oh.
And then
I just
the little
bent mine.
Yeah. I can't get
and then the little this has got a little hole, and that just fits over the tubing and up to the top. And then you take your my handle slid all the way to the floor. Then you take your handle and just slide it back on and screw it back together. And then you've got a little steel plate here that attaches to the magnet. But if you've got the crimps on the hose, it can make it, if they're crimped up too far, it may make it a little tricky to unscrew this and slide down your handle. But is that what the problem is? They've got crimps?
Yeah, I can't get it apart.
Yeah. What do you have, like the brass ferrules, or do you have the brass ferrules on there?
I do.
And you can't unscrew your handle?
Mm-mm.
Huh.
Well, let me go look real quick just to be sure.
Okay.
I'll be right back.
Yeah.
I didn't know that it would come undone, and so I just I didn't know how that worked, so I bent the little ring and then shoved it on there and bent the ring back.
Yeah. And it should
But you got it to
fit.
work.
Yeah, it should fit. I'll flip this around here. Hang on. So that when this unscrews up at the top, right? This unscrews like so. This has a little hole in it, a little slot, and that should pop just over these two tubes for your gases, right? So it sort of clips on
Actually,
like that, right? Oops, and then slides up to the top there. Just slides right up to the top. So it fits like above your threads, and then that should screw right back in like that.
I actually haven't
So.
unboxed mine yet, so I should do that now.
There you go. Yeah. And then this is just a piece of steel, and because the handle on this is aluminum, so it's not magnetic. So that just allows you to stick it to the magnet like that, right? Like so.
Nice.
But when you're replacing the hoses on these, they have little brass ferrules now, which is new. And the hoses, if you warm them up in warm water, make them a little more, it makes it a lot easier to sort of push them over the little sectioned parts. And then you slide your
the
ferrule
metal
up there. Yeah.
tubing.
And it comes with the tool to push those back into the ferrules back into place. So this cinches it up onto your the connection. So it makes it a lot easier. The previously they had ones that like you had to actually crimp them, and the crimp sometimes would be in the way of being able to get off the handle. So
Oh, that makes sense. Yeah.
Yeah.
So
but
Kathleen, what was,
otherwise, Kathleen, they should be the same as far as I know.
Yeah, this is what
show
kind
us yours. Yeah.
see. I have all the stuff off, but
Mhm.
this is what that looks like. And there is, I need more muscle, I guess. I don't
Yeah,
know.
yeah.
I can't.
It should unscrew,
Thank
and it
Yeah.
is, right to tight, left to loose, right? So you
Right.
want to make sure you're going, unscrewing it the
Yes.
right direction.
Unscrewing,
But
as opposed
yeah.
to screwing.
Yeah, unscrewing instead of screwing. But if you can get somebody, you want to hold on to the knobs and just give it a good twist that way. Yeah, yeah. So yeah, it may just be, if it's never been done before, it can be a little tight. So yeah.
Okay. I have hope.
Well, at least you're not, at least, it's like sometimes when something like that is really tight and sticky and it won't move, then you think you're doing it wrong.
Right.
Right. And so now at least you've had confirmed that it is supposed to unscrew. It is supposed to unscrew there. Right. That you are supposed to hang on to the knobs, that they can handle that torque, so yeah. Because sometimes you're like, is it here that it unscrews, or is it?
It's like, is it me?
Or is it the tool? Right. Exactly.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. And the nice thing about that too is that it should be, the handle doesn't need to be like, machined into place. It should be easy enough once you get it
because it's not integral
undone.
to the function of it. Yeah.
Yeah, exactly right. Yeah. So the thing you don't want to do is like twist the knobs, off the handle. That would not be right. that would mess it up pretty bad. But so you don't want to put like the knobs in a vise and then try to turn it. That wouldn't work. And you don't want to like put the handle in the vise because that'll crush it because it's a hollow tube. But it should be, once you get it undone, it should be easy to do over and over again. It's kind of like once you open the ketchup bottle the first time,
It's good.
it's a lot easier to do the second time and after that. Yeah.
Well, good. Let us know, Kathleen. Keep us informed. We want to know that if you got your thing separated.
Yes. Okay.
Helen, do you want to do a little show and tell on the website? I was thinking too, we had mentioned in passing we have referral codes and that we have a rewards program. And it would be nice for people to know where that is and also where they would go to see their videos. Their videos.
Oh, actually, let me log in.
I know we said
I'll
we were
show
going
you
to do
how-
an
I'll
hour
show-
class,
log
and
in.
we're running a little bit long because we just are all talkers.
Because
So
we just like to
hopefully this is
talk.
all-
Yeah.
And because, you
This is all good
ask us a
information.
question and we're going to answer you because that's just how we
True.
are.
Yes.
Now you roll.
Okay. So give me just a second. Okay. And I'm gonna close
So
while she's looking, is this Seahawks Day?
that window.
Yeah, can you tell?
Yes.
Jennifer's got her Seahawks togs on.
Yeah.
Are you going to the game, Jennifer?
They're not currently winning, and they only have a 2% chance of being in the playoffs at this point. But I still love them.
Okay.
She's
You're not
a
fair
true
weather.
fan, committed. There we
Yeah.
go. There's Helen sharing.
Okay. So let me actually minimize this a little bit from my screen, because I think all you can see is the website. So one of the biggest questions that we have is where you see your videos. So we'll start with that. So we go to log in, and or actually let's start with, if you don't have an account, I'm already logged in. Let me log out. So you go to the top here, there's a little person icon, and you just click on that and it'll take you to create your account. And so
Which
you
is
just
free.
fill out your name, email, password.
Right,
And
and it's
then
free.
create
You don't
in-
have to pay for,
Yeah, it's
pay
all
anything
free.
for the account.
Nope. And there's no obligation and all that kind of stuff. So you can sign in for account and not do anything with it. It's all good. So then once you are logged in, so I'm going to go to the little arrow. So the arrow pointing into the rectangle or the bracket means that you're logging in. And then you'll see that it changes so that the arrow is pointing out of the bracket, and that means you're logging out. So I am going to log in, and I am not a robot. Sorry. Da, da, da.
That's okay. It's good for people to see.
Oh, come on. Technical difficulties. Maybe I shouldn't have signed out. Yes, yes, yes. Enter password. Da, da, da. Sign in. I am not a robot. I think I must have hit the back button for some reason, somehow. Cars. Come on, verify.
You know what you mean.
Cars. Come on, verify me, cars. Verify, come on. Okay, thank you. Oh, come on. Seriously? Sorry, maybe I really shouldn't have logged out. Okay. Submit. Oh, come on. I cannot believe this. I am the web guru and I can't
She
log
is.
into my account. Sign in.
It's fine. It's because you're doing
There
it
we
on
go.
Zoom.
Okay.
There we go.
Of course. So,
But you know, these
all right,
things
here we
happen.
go.
And so it's like, don't, you know, if it's giving you a hard time, don't panic. Just try a couple more times. Because
And
sometimes
then
it's
email me, Helen
and
at
then email
Helen at
Helen.
littlemetalboxes.com.
right. And she will
So
fix it.
here you can see all the classes that you purchased. And then when you have a video, you go to My Videos and it will show up here. Now I don't, mine isn't showing yet, but once they expire, they will go away. So you won't see your old classes here. You only see what's active. So then all your classes would be here. So now let's go back to the home page and you'll see that there's this class rewards down here. And so this is where you're going to find all your rewards information. And so you can go here and you can see, you know, where, you know, what you have and what you earned. And you can, you know, this answers questions on how to get points. And then you can get answers on how to redeem your points. And so like if you wanted to, pardon me, purchase a reward with your points, then you would then, you know, be able to click on, because I don't have any reward points, I can't do it, but you can, you'd be able to click on
She's
something.
only
and then,
part way to the $5 reward, but if it were all the way, if it was a full orange circle, then she'd be able to click on that and get a code for the coupon, and then use that coupon to buy a class. So, but importantly, down at the bottom, there you go. I wanted you to talk about that. Yeah.
If you want to have friends referred and get rewards for referring friends, you copy this URL right here, this link, and you send that to your friends. And then when they use that link to get back to the website, then we know it records that your friends have used that link and that you will get credit for it. And when they sign up
get a $10 off coupon.
And they buy a class.
Yeah.
So if you spend, you know, if you refer 10 friends, or if you've got friends that want to take a class together with you, so let's say you've got, you know, 8 friends that are wanting to all learn a technique and you all take the class together, you pretty much get the class for free.
Yeah, because you get $10 off for each person that refers and buys a class.
Yeah. So you could actually,
so that's,
And that referral link is yours forever. And you can refer as many people as you want, right? So, you know, every time we get a new customer, you get $10.
If they use that link, So, but it's important to use that link because that's the only way we know how to track it.
Right.
All right. So I'm going to close that back down and, oh yes. So now here's other important information. There's lots of information that we have for you on the website under student info. So you can just click student info And you'll see here, we have links here to other, this is especially important if you're on your phone, because I'm not sure how to fix it, but for some reason you can't get access to all the menu items on your phone. So I've added these because it's important that you guys have this information. So we have, we have just some recommendations and some explanations about Zoom and our class, the tiers or levels of difficulty. And then the next thing that's really important is actually this resource page right here, because we give you all of the discount codes that we have for our students. So they're all right here under resources. And then we have a list of all of our favorite things and where to get them, and information for you, like, metal recycling and stuff like that. I mean, which is really cool. Books, and no, we have books as a separate list. Other suppliers, so it's not just all Rio, and we have Seattle Findings, Danica Design, Tacoma Metal Arts. I mean, we have so many connections with people in the industry. So we're trying to make sure that we have a good list here for you guys. Actually, I need to update some of that. And then some other online resources like Ganoxen is phenomenal.
We need to add
have
Metalsmith Society to that too.
We do.
Yeah, and I was thinking we need to add in Lion Punch Forge. So
Yeah.
well, they're up there. Okay.
Right. So talk a little bit about Rio Grande, because Rio Grande, we have a special relationship with them that you can, because we're one of the Rio for Schools thing. So there's where it says more info here, that's all the information about how to sign up for their program, which gives you a discount, right? So this is all the steps. Their program's got a few steps to get the discount. You have to go through this process, but it's worth it because you get a pretty decent discount on your on tools as well as materials.
Yeah, and for like Peppy,
so we have
for Lion Punch Forge, it's just a code. And
it's just a
for
code, and
Seattle
it's just a
Findings.
discount code for when you check out. For Rio, you have to basically, become a member of that program, and I think you get those discounts for like 6 months. It says in there.
Right.
So you have to go in and sign, and if you already have an account, you basically have to link your account with the Rio for Schools code, and our Rio for Schools code is RFS LMF, Rio for Schools Little Metal Foxes is what it is. And so that way they know that you're connected to us, and then you can get your discount on your tools and materials.
right.
Can you,
Okay,
Helen, talk about the a little bit with the supplies list as well?
Yeah,
One of the
so let me
classes?
go over just one other thing.
Oh,
if
yes,
you go
please.
under student information, under the drop down, or you can go here, we have our list of books that we like. And so these are some terrific resources for learning some stuff in more detail on your own, or different techniques that maybe we don't get you every bit of information that that you might want. And and not that, I mean, we tried, don't get me wrong, we tried, I'm sorry. Not trying to say we're not sufficient, because we are. I mean, Julia and Jennifer are amazing.
So are you.
Anyway, but this is a really great resource for books and stuff. So take advantage of this list as well.
These are books that we feel really deliver quality information. There are a lot of jewelry books out there. You could spend a lot of money on books, but it's good to spend money on books that really are meaty and give you lots of information and lots of good quality information. You want the information to be correct. Because there are books out there that are a little skint on information at all, and then also some that aren't really right.
Yeah, and then what Jennifer was saying about your supply list, let's go ahead and look at this next upcoming class. One of the things that we thought was really important is that you have a full list of what we recommend to be successful in a class. Now, you don't have to do everything that's on this list. But we felt it was really important for every student to have access and to see what's involved before they make the decision to purchase the class, so that they can, really decide what they want to do, and not be surprised when they go into the class and go, oh, well, shoot, I have to spend another, $50, $100, $200, and you get kind of, it can take you off because it's unexpected.
It's a little bit of sticker shock. You sign up for a class that's $100, and then you find out when you get in the class that you're going to have $250 worth of tools and equipment, and it can be a little shocking to some students and disappointing when they realize that they don't have the money to do that, or they already had the tools and they paid this much for a tool kit. So we really felt it was important to have transparency with the supplies and what we're using to do our demos with. So most of the supplies and the tools that are on those lists are what Julia and I are using in the studio to do the demo. And that way there are links directly to that on Amazon or Rio or Peppy or wherever we're getting it from usually. But they're just what we're recommending. They're not essential. And a lot of times people opt to buy the tools and equipment after the class because we're usually doing like lecture demos. And that way we can explain what tools we're using and why. And then you can go back to that list and see it again to be able to have the links, and be able to see, what you need for those classes afterwards as well.
And we generally include those links, like when you sign up for a class, because of course, once the class has run, this page goes away that has the supply list on it. But we include that supply list in the email that goes out to you for the Zoom link for the class. So you actually have a copy of that supply list in your inbox that survives, that persists after the class is taken down off the website. After the class runs, we move on and, it's taken off the website. So we want you to continue to have access to that list, because that's a big part of what it's like. I go back and look at supply lists from classes I've taken years later, like, wait, which size burr was it for this? And, what did they recommend? I remember, she really liked a very particular X-Acto knife or something. And so I want to know, that kind of thing.
Right.
So yes.
Okay. Yeah.
And if you have any questions, you can ask us questions, right? Like if something on the supply list is confusing in some way, or like occasionally especially with Amazon, we'll link to something and then it won't be there. And so the link will be broken. Let us know, we'll fix it. We'll get a new link up or we'll answer your question and clarify, what specifically we were wanting you to have.
Right. And a lot of times with the Amazon accounts too, it's, they'll have the exact same thing in another location. It's not necessarily like that one link. So if you a lot of times search for that thing on Amazon again, you'll see another one just like it. So
exactly.
So another thing that's helpful is if you go to the footer of every page, you'll see where if you can't find something or if you need to contact us, we have our our policy and information about the referral program, but also we have our frequently asked questions, and we have it as a downloadable form, so you don't have to keep coming back to the website. You can just download it, and it shows you how to log in to view your videos, and how to like sign up for your account. Important things that that you need to understand about getting the most out of your account with us. And let's see, what was so and just briefly, we just have our our policies and stuff, and all the other stuff that we do in our referral program, so you can we explain it and show you how how everything works over there. So it's a pretty straightforward website. We try to keep it as clear as possible, but sometimes we're not perfect, and just email us if you don't have, if you can't find something and you have a question that we're not answering. We will, on the website we're not answering, but we will respond to you as soon as we can. We really want to make sure that, you know, we have communication and that you are getting everything that you need to be successful, because that's our goal, is to make you successful. And also, we like to also show off our student works. So these are all things that people have made during classes. And, you know, so if you have something that you want to share with us, please send us a picture. We will post on the website. We love seeing everybody's work. It's so much fun because, you know, it's, everybody has a different sense of creativity and style, and everybody does the same thing different, you know, so it's really great to see what everybody does. And is there anything else that I need to, do you think I need to cover on
that
the?
covers it pretty well. Did you guys have any questions for Helen?
Yeah, let me pull up the YouTube and make sure that I'm not missing anybody over there.
Okay. So yeah, you know, one of our goals is to make sure that we're sort of offering a classroom type situation where we do have, you know, multiple people in the room that can ask questions. So it is interactive. And I think one of the things that I've enjoyed a lot is finding that it's created this sense of community, like if you're in an actual classroom.
Yeah.
Because I know that, you know, Kathleen especially has taken lots of classes, Maureen too, that, you know, you guys have built friendships with people in different places all over, because you've taken multiple classes with those people. So it's been kind of interesting to see that evolve as an online classroom community. So yeah,
I mean, and that was one of our things that we really wanted to provide, was that interaction, you know, so that you're not just watching a video and you've got no way to ask questions, or you know, you're just kind of stuck and you don't get that, you don't get the ideas necessarily of that flow when you're actively talking to people. And
you can't say, you know, I didn't see that, can you get it closer? Or
can you hold still for a minute? The other thing is, you know, the questions that other students ask can be so informative, right? And so having the opportunity to be in a class and hear the questions that somebody else is asking, like, can open doors for you and can illuminate a point for you in a way that you're like, oh my God, yes, right? You know,
because you don't know what you don't know, and if somebody else asks the question, it's like, oh, I didn't even know that was possible. So
and seeing other people's work. I mean, that's one of the things that has been so much fun about the Studio Sparks classes, and Kathleen has done one of those with me, is that seeing how different people interpret a brief or interpret an idea is really inspiring, because it you know, the only way you have one way of looking at the world, and then expanding that and seeing it through the eyes of other artists and other makers can be just really, I don't know, it's kind of mind-blowing. So that's one of the things I've really loved about the Studio Sparks classes is seeing, like, one of my favorites was take 3 wires and make a ring, right? Make a ring with 3 different pieces of wire. And all the ones that were made were so different, and it was really cool.
So and I think it was kind of interesting too, because I know she did Kathleen did the production class as well.
Spot.
And that was one of those classes that kind of everybody came to it at different levels of, you know, skill levels. And some people were already doing production. Some people had worked in production for years. Some people had never done production, and everybody benefited because they were sharing information and questions and how they were approaching problems. And I think it kind of changed a lot of people's minds about how they were working and how they could work better. And just because a lot of people were asking questions and interacting, and it's really important to have that kind of interaction in the classroom, you know. So
I mean, we missed that personally. I mean, that was a big part of what I missed, was the things that I learned from my students. I didn't want to just make a video and just like put the video out into the world, because then I didn't have the fun of that interaction, because I learned so much, and it's like, no, don't take that away from me. I need that to keep coming into my space. I'm very selfish that way. I really
that's
like
exactly it. I mean, we created this completely out of selfish interest.
Oh, completely self-interested, right? Because we're missing all of our peeps, and our
absolutely.
students. And now we have students in Hawaii and Montreal and Caracas, Venezuela,
UK.
and London,
And the UK, Canada.
Which is, and some of our students who we had met in person here in the Seattle area moved to other parts of the country. So one of our students is in Montana, I think, isn't that where she is? Or Nebraska. She's in Nebraska. And so she doesn't have, there's no place physically nearby for her to take a class, but she can come and take a class with us. And, and Kathleen, I know you had said, you wrote a lovely little note to us about how a little review about how with the pandemic, you're like, what am I going to do? Take classes online.
And I'm still going to, because it's so good.
It's fun. Yeah. And you can actually see better. I've had a lot of students say, oh, wow, I can really, because if you're physically in a studio space, there are probably two people who can really see what the instructor's doing. The two who have their heads, like they're breathing into your ears, right? And they're looking
literally
over your
down your neck.
Which is fine. And I was always fine with that. I was like, come on, people, vulture me. Come on in, get as close as you can. But there's a physical limit to how close 16 people in a room can get to you, right?
Yeah.
When you're making,
especially when you're
really
having
tiny.
to have 6 foot distancing.
Yeah, well, let's not even talk about that. But with the document camera and with the cell phone cameras, with all these things, with the loop, I love using my loop to give people a really tight close-up view. It's like all of a sudden you can all see at once the thing I'm talking about, instead of me saying, here's the thing, and then you're passing it around the room and you're all looking at it and you've forgotten what was the point. And then I'm gone on and talked about something else and you've lost the thread. It's like, no, we're all, on the same page, in the same thread at the same time.
Well, and a lot of times I'm able to use video in a way where I've got it zoomed in. And I had a couple of people that have, when I've done the solder demystified, that have seen the solder flow for the first time, even though they're people that have been soldering for a while. They're like, that's the first time I've actually ever seen it flow in a way that it's like moving. And it's sometimes hard to see if you can't get that close. One, because not just because you're watching an instructor, but even when you're doing it yourself. I am usually soldering with optivisors on, so I can see it. And by being able to video that on Zoom, just zooming in to see what you're doing, it makes it a little bit easier to actually see that precise thing happen, or what, a raised burr looks like with an engraver, because you can zoom in enough to be able to see that little thing. And, when you're passing it around, it's like, I am still not seeing it. What is she talking about? The thing's going around. And it's
like, I missed it. I don't understand. And then she's all gone on to talk about something else. And you're like, wait, what am I looking at? What is this one? Like, things are coming to you, like down the line. It's like the bucket brigade, and they're passing you another thing. And you're like, what am I looking at on this one? Yeah.
Well, did you guys have any questions before we sign off today?
And YouTube people, any questions? I'm going to type that in.
Yeah, Maureen, what's up?
Well, first of all, thank you so much for this class. It's been really great seeing you all.
Yeah, you too.
And talking about jewelry. But can you please recommend a flush cutter that is actually flush?
I love these. This is my favorite pair of flush cutters. I have been through so many pairs, I can't even tell you. And these are Zoron flush cutters. And the thing, let's see if we can get here we go. I'll show you here. Let me flip that around. Where'd my camera go? There it is. Zoron.
Okay.
And the Zoron, the nice thing about these particular things is they're not too terribly expensive. They're usually under $20. They've got a nice sturdy tip on these, but it's got a little bit of a point to it. So I can cut level on a surface and still get a clean cut on something like fine, delicate chain, which is sometimes almost impossible. So when I'm measuring chain like on a surface, I can actually cut right up to the surface and it will still cut delicate chain. But they're not so sharp and pointy that they have a tendency to bend or break open. A lot of times when you're working with, more delicate, little shears, these can only cut up to like 22 gauge. These can cut up to like 12 gauge. And they still are, and they still are.
Is there
flush.
a number on there?
No, they're just Zoron flush cutters. And you can find these at, I believe, just about any metal supplier. They're available from Rio and from Euro Tool and a bunch of other places. But Rio does carry these, and I think they're like between 14 and 18 bucks. And I like them so much. I have two.
And
I've
they
got
really
two.
cut flat.
I've got two at work.
And they really cut straight.
They cut really straight. And any flush cutters that you're going to have are going to be, it's still going to have a slight pinch to it on any of them. But these leave a really minimal bite. They are, because the flush cutters, if they're not lined up properly, will give you a little bit of a pinch on the end. But these, because they're just super flush on this side, give me just the most minimal amount of pinch. And then I can usually just sand that remaining clip off pretty easily, and it still gives me a nice flat end. So, anytime you're using shears and cutters of any kind, you are compressing the metal. It's like it's squeezing it before it starts to break. And you're basically squeezing it to the point where it's breaking on a straight line on one side and on a pinched side on the other. But you're still going to have a little bit of that, compression in between. But having a pair like this that is that flat and that sturdy will give you, it has given me a little bit of a better cut and a little bit smoother cut over the years. And I've just found that one I can rely on. I use it every day at work for production stuff, and we'll do literally thousands of cuts in a week. And it has held up incredibly well. I don't ever cut steel with it. I don't ever cut like really, hard material.
You wouldn't cut memory wire or titanium or steel or anything like that. You're cutting silver, gold fill, copper. Right.
And you always want to look at any of your flush cutters and see what their maximum capacity is, because a lot of people don't understand that a lot of those finer flush cutters only cut up to like 22 or 20 gauge. They're not real heavy. So the nice thing about those is I can cut 16 gauge square wire with those just really easily.
Which is great. Yeah. All right.
That helped.
Well,
those are my favorite flush cutters.
That's fantastic.
Yeah. Well, Zoron makes a bunch of flush cutters, and they have a double flush cutter that I like. The only disadvantage of it is that it does leave a little bit of a mark on the metal further down. Yeah, I think it's not that one. It's one that.
Yeah, these are a double flush cutter, and it's
the one I have is a little bit different. But that brand, the Zoron brand, is a good brand. They've kind of put a flag into the.
They figured it out.
We're the cutter people. We're the people who are going to make cutters that actually cut. But as Jennifer says, it is not possible to get a pinch cut that does not have at least a tiny little residue. If you want a perfectly flat cut that doesn't have a residue, you're going to have to cut it with a saw, or cut it with a separating disc, or cut it with something which actually removes metal by, removes Lemel, cuts away like metal sawdust.
Right. Yeah. Right.
That's the only way to get a perfectly flat surface.
Yeah. Even like heavier, this is actually a flush cutter as well that has a stop on it. And this is great for cutting big stuff, but it still is going to pinch the end. And
just a teeny bit, but it still will pinch it.
Yeah.
And it does compress the outside edges slightly as well. Because again, you're physically crushing the metal. However, refined the blades are, you're still crushing the metal.
Yeah.
as opposed to sawing it where you're removing a little bit from the middle. So,
Right.
you know, I mean, we all know these things. Just like
Little bonus tips.
little bonus
No,
tip.
that makes a lot of sense. Thank you.
Yeah, yeah,
you bet.
absolutely. So,
All right. Any other questions from YouTube?
Nope.
Nope.
Paula and Mayanne was actually on YouTube as well. I just didn't get to mention her name until now. So, but thank you everybody who was watching on YouTube.
Yeah.
thank you.
And this will be on the YouTube channel. So if anybody
You can rewatch it.
Yep. If you want to refer it to somebody and say, you know, this is a little setup thing you guys can watch for free. Or if they have any questions about us and who we are and what we do, you can refer this to them and they can see it for free on YouTube. So
Yep. And it'll
There
be
you
up
go.
for 30 days, just like our standard videos. So
there you go. On the website.
Yes, for the
Oh,
people
you
who
don't-
signed up. Yeah, for the people who signed up for the class, you can test out your like, hey, this is how my video. You can go in and see. Oh, there's my video. We'll probably end up leaving it up on YouTube, just because
That's what I mean.
it's useful, and so we'll leave it. You know, since
That's a good
since it's
example.
free
I had a
thing. It's
little
good example.
misunderstanding.
No, it's fine.
Who
It's
we
all
are.
good.
Yeah.
All right,
All right.
ladies.
Thank you
Well,
very much. Thank you for joining us.
Yeah, it was
Thank
good to
you
see
very
everyone.
much.
Thank you.
Yeah.
All right.
And happy birthday to Julia this weekend, by the way.
Yeah. Thank you.
Yay, happy birthday.
Happy birthday.
And I hope everybody has a wonderful holiday. And in this season of giving, I hope you all are giving wonderful jewelry, giving your knowledge to people who need it, helping out people, and and sharing your love.
All right.
Wait,
All right.
thank you guys.
Bye.
Okay.
Thank you.
Bye bye.
Thank
Bye.
you.
Yeah, we'll see you next time.